Oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes Benz? Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to the Great Debate Community, or community, or which is a really serious debate between everybody. It's either going to be does Jesus work for the Great Debate Community, and have I seen him in a hangout? Or it's does Jesus work for Mercedes, which is the more likely of the two, considering this is the fifth 1-2 result Mercedes have had this season, and they're obviously going for a knockout season. And will it be 21? That's the question, Fabio. We're all on the bated breath for, is it not?
I'm not.
You're not? No? Oh. Okay, so what's your answer? Do you think Jesus is Italian? Is the Pope working for Ferrari and that's why they can't win?
I I don't know. I mean, you start with that angle because I have the whole different beginning. I was going to congratulate Jonathan Ria for finally winning a race,
Yeah, I
because
saw it. I
it
saw it.
was it wasn't the fucking same situation. So I was congratulating the guy for winning a race, and when they had a chance to win the second race, it was raining cats and dogs, so they couldn't make it. And of course, I'm talking about the Superbike, where we had a similar situation with Ducati winning, with Alvaro Bautista winning everything and his sister. Having said that, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck you want me to say. I mean, the championship, I think it's gone.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think there would be races where, okay, I think what Ferrari can do is try to win races. I don't think it's even feasible right now unless something very funny and very strange turns up during the season. I think the best thing to do is winning races. I think there will be some races where Ferrari will be faster than Mercedes, and I will talk about the reasons later if you want. But yeah, let's
yeah,
go with
okay.
that.
Well, it's possible that Bottas and Hamilton will get into such a fight that they take each other out.
I,
Maybe 3 races.
I was talking about more technical reasons. Those kind of reasons. That shit can happen every time. I mean, who forgets the great big uh, um, meeting that Nico and Lewis had. I think what was that in
In Spain last
yeah.
year. Yeah.
So yeah, they decided to have a conversation at the side of the
Yeah.
track. So fuck it. So yeah, I mean it's fives in a row. I think Bahrain could have gone a little bit different, but still, it's five in a row. Numbers don't lie. The reason I said something about that before is because how much of an asshole I am, for data and numbers, and I looked at some data and some numbers, and I think they're quite interesting. But yeah, I don't want to monopolize all the things. So you carry on, and then I'll follow up
Sure.
with that later.
Okay, that's cool. So basically, yeah, it was the Spanish Grand Prix. After all the fun and jollies we've been having, it was the Spanish Grand Prix. That's in Spain for those of you that are outside Europe. And basically, sorry, I couldn't resist that. Just in case Gus is watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a um, rather interesting Grand Prix because it was all over by the first corner, which is more than we've had recently. So yeah, basically Bottas got pole position, a stunning pole position lap.
Mhm.
I think we'd all agree it was that a new lap record. So these cars are super fast. Um, but Lewis has just got the reactions of a cat or Jesus, to follow the theme of today, and and also just read the side comment, and that's very funny.
Yeah, yeah, I saw
Uh,
that too.
so
Good job.
yeah, and yeah, so Lewis, with the reactions of a cat, managed to get into the first corner first. Helped allegedly, and I like the comment that Sebastian made after the race, which is he helped Lewis out by distracting by distracting
Yeah.
Bottas.
Well,
So that made me laugh a lot. But yeah, Sebastian went down the outside, locked his brakes,
he tried.
made a mistake. He gave it a go, and unfortunately, he lost out to Verstappen in the third corner. So, and that pretty much set the pace for the race, because round a circuit like Barcelona, you can't overtake. The downforce is key. Downforce is key, and so following a car close is really, really difficult, and therefore that allows the tactics of the first car to prevail, really. And if they don't make a mistake, then you're not going to get overtakes. And that's pretty much what happened. Lewis didn't make any mistakes, and he came home in first place by 15 seconds or so, something like that. And then it was Bottas in second place, Verstappen in third place, Vettel in fourth, and the pacey pastry Leclerc came home in fifth place. I felt he had another unfortunate race myself, but Fabio can talk about that.
No, I mean, well, first of all, I can't really blame Vettel, for trying. That was his chance. He tried to take it. It didn't work well. Fuck it. Yeah. Leclerc had an interesting. They set up an interesting strategy. Unfortunately, the safety car just fucked it up royally. Thank you, Norris. But yeah. Besides that, there's not much I can say. Ricciardo almost got 2 points. Actually, Ricciardo said something interesting. He said, "If I get points this race, I'm gonna win Monte Carlo." So we gotta see what the fuck he's doing in Monte Carlo. But yeah, I mean, it's Ricciardo. What the fuck,
Yeah, perhaps he thought he was going to enter the F3 race instead of the Formula One race.
Well, I don't know. I mean, listen, if there is one person that can win a race in Monte Carlo with a Renault, it's Ricciardo. There is no fucking way around it. If that can happen, that is the guy.
Yeah, if it can happen, I would seriously doubt it can happen.
Oh no, I seriously doubt.
I mean, not without at least 5 or 6 teams taking each other out. But
I'm tempted to place some money on that, just for shit and giggles. I mean, I'm gonna make a shitload of money if it happens. Not too much.
You get some good odds. Yeah, you get some good odds. I'd rather enter the lottery, though, to be perfectly fair.
Yeah. No, but anyway, you said something interesting. Barcelona's downforce circuit, and that brings me back, to the topic I was, hinting before. I looked at some data. There is some interesting stuff, which. I think that after 5 races, we can try to understand what the fuck the situation is. Well, there is a big problem in Ferrari. It seems to be that the changes they're bringing, they're not working the way they think. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. The problem is that they are working, because you don't bring something, a new wing or something like that, and if it doesn't work, you use it in the race. So that means it is working. There's some things we can say. Well, the first thing we can say is that the test in Barcelona, Mercedes was joking. There is no way around it, because it's impossible that that they just change the car in such a brief amount of time. The second thing is the difference between the two cars. Now you can in order to have a car drive fast, you can have a high drag or a high efficiency. Ferrari's got it's a very aerodynamically efficient car. If you see the top speed, all the races, because I've watched all of them, I saw the data for all of them. They have consistently the top speed on track speed. It is interesting to see what the top speed of Mercedes is. Mercedes is lower than Renault on top speeds, but they have the fastest speed on the corners, and that's something. It's not a problem of traction. It's not a problem. Well, Ferrari also has a problem with the mid corner. I mean, the car doesn't steer, but this is because it is highly efficient, but it has low drag. It doesn't have enough downforce. So those are the two routes that the two cars have gone, and Mercedes, went for that route. They gamble a little bit more, but it's paying off. this is something that it breaks my heart to say that when I was working, for the company which remains unnamed, they had that, and I think it's something that it's Italian. I'm sorry to say, we have that aim to have the most powerful engine and the top speed, which actually it's something only the Germans care about. Top speed. Nobody fucking cares. But we have that goal, and we had the same problems with two wheels too. Mercedes is a more all-around car. We said it before. Ferrari is more edgy, is more pointy. It's more difficult to put it in the correct window of where everything is working. But right now, I think it's a philosophy problem, and they will have to work a lot. And believe me, those guys in Maranello, everybody works a lot. They work day and literally night. The problem is that unless they change the philosophy, it's going to be a problem. Last thing, and then I quit. The reason I said there might be 5 or 6 races where Ferrari is actually better than Mercedes is because there would be circuits like in Bahrain, for example, where you have long, fast corners. And I'm thinking about, for example, Silverstone. I'm thinking about Monza. I'm thinking about, there are a couple of others, where Ferrari might actually be better than Mercedes because of the configuration of the track and the way the car is built.
Sure. Okay. So, there's a hell of a lot there you said, but firstly, I would bring up the upgrades that Ferrari allegedly brought to this race to Spain. So they allegedly bought an engine upgrade, and I would agree it looked like it worked. Right?
Yeah.
They didn't have the same issues. The reliability seemed to be back. They could lean on the tires, etc., etc. So that seemed really good, other than the fact that it didn't get them closer to Mercedes because they obviously couldn't run as much downforce.
It's a very interesting engine, by the way. Remind me that, because they've got some interesting solutions.
Okay. So we'll talk about that. But this is, going back to my conspiracy theory. I think this is they
if you say tires, I'm out of here.
I'm going to say tires at some point. You know that. I'm going to say tires at some point.
Say tires at the end, because the moment you say tires, I'm fucking out of here.
Yeah, no, okay. Well, I'm basically saying that the Pope blesses Pirelli. All right, it's Jesus tires. That's what I'm saying. They don't work. They just don't work, right? Okay. But anyway, apart from that, the engine upgrade, I think that plays into this point that Ferrari had basically don't have enough cooling for their engine, and that's what they've changed this time. So I think that what they've done is they've kept the power the same, which is slightly higher, but they've managed to get the cooling better, and that's what they should have bought at the beginning of the season, and then develop the speed, and that's what they haven't been able to do. So although I would certainly grant you that the top speed of the Ferrari has been outstanding, I think it's outstanding because of this point about keeping the cooling to an absolute minimum.
I understand your point. I disagree with that. I think the problem is more the philosophy of the car, as I said. The changes that they brought in the engine, I'm still not convinced. And you'll be talking about that a lot. And again, nobody knows for sure. But I still disagree on the cooling factor. The changes that they brought to the engine this particular race, they're actually very, very, very interesting from an engineering point of view, because they basically had steel pistons, which is something that it blows my fucking mind, right? Because steel, it is better. It's steel and some other trickery in that, but it's not aluminium or aluminium, depending on who the fuck is listening. Steel, it's better because they have much more resistance, and they deform less under load. The problem nobody uses steel is because it's fucking heavy. So when you have high RPMs, you basically have a big hammer, going up and down, so nobody uses that. They are using steel pistons because they have a very interesting technique of 3D printing. So basically, if you look at a piston, well, if any of us, would ever be able to look at the pistons they use, but sources say that they are, well, first of all, they're 3D printed, and also they have a structure internally. They have a structure like a honey nest, a bee's nest. Yeah.
Honeycomb.
Yeah. Which is fucking amazing, and apparently they work. So again, I think it's a philosophy. And let me say one more thing. And this is a thing that, if you remember, I said from the beginning of the race, I was really skeptical about the new team manager in Ferrari. You remember that. And the reason why I was really skeptical is because he's a motherfucking engineer. I said it 5 races ago, and I will repeat it right that engineers are not good at being team managers. They just are not. The way they view things, it's good if you just put them on a leash and you just train them to do that stuff. That is not his job. This, I think, it's a big problem. And I think there is one person in the world which is laughing his ass off, and he cannot show it, and it's Maurizio Arrivabene, the former team manager. That guy is crying inside. Well, he's crying outside because he's a fan. He's a serious fan. But part of him is just laughing his ass off.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think the other person that may be having a little chuckle is Jock Clear, because he seems to be getting the upper hand in Ferrari in terms of the politics. So he's obviously throwing his weight around a bit. He is, of course, he is the chief engineer for the pastry Leclerc, Charles Leclerc, and Charles Leclerc, I should say.
Charles. Yeah.
And also, and again, it seems madness to me because, Charles was allowed to stay ahead of Vettel when I thought it would be tactically advantageous for them to swap round. Right, and they did swap round, but they just took like 3 laps too long to do it.
Yeah,
three laps is long enough time to wear your tires out, your front tires out, and take the advantage away of having new rubber. So again, I don't understand why Ferrari can't make these decisions very quickly. But I think your last comment highlighted exactly why, because they've got engineers running the team,
yes,
and not managers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I think this might be a systemic problem for the year for them until they manage to sort out who's doing which roles. And when they say do something, they mean do something, right? And that includes Vettel and Charles Leclerc, right? So, at the beginning, maybe Vettel could have let Charles through because he was clearly faster, although only by a little bit. And then secondly, after the second stop, they could, again, after the first stop, they could have swapped them round, swapped Vettel and Leclerc again, or to put Vettel ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So at least he could have had a go at Verstappen. Not that he would have taken him, right? Because we know exactly what happens, but at least he would have had an extra 3 or 4 laps worth of good rubber to catch up behind him, to get in his slipstream, to give it a go. Mm-hmm. And if there's one person that can overtake someone like Verstappen, it's Vettel. I mean, let's not piss around. He's still, 4 times world champion. That's something that Leclerc is not going to get for many years.
Well, he can try. I think he can try, but it's not that much of a given. I agree with you.
Vettel's proven overtaker, right? He knows exactly how far you can stick it down the inside and get away with it.
Right.
And even if they come together, that's still good publicity, right?
No, and the only thing I agree with Binotto right now, because that's something which he said at the beginning and still maintaining that, is the fact that he says, that if there is equality and we have to make a choice, our choice is Vettel, and he's right.
Yeah,
because you know how much I love Leclerc. I think that guy is fucking impressive, period. I mean, there is no buts and ifs about that. But if you are a team manager, again, you got to look at the data. And right now, the data is 4-1 for Vettel on qualifying. And you got to take that into consideration. Now, they made a very interesting choice tactically, trying to put, the white tires on Leclerc and trying, because they knew, say, okay, we have two pilots. We put them on a very, edgy tactic. We choose, the youngster, which is fast. So we try with that one. That other guy is more consistent, and we try that. And that was brilliant. But then you shit yourself, in your hand, trying, to take a dump with that kind of stuff. So, and again, everything, it's something that it will never happen, because of the pace car. But you didn't know about that. So yeah, I agree with you. There is this weird disconnection. Sometimes you seem to do something brilliant, and then sometimes you do not fucking understand what the fuck they're thinking. And it's mesmerizing, and it's problematic, because I think this is the same attitude. This is something which translates from the track to the factory. And that's the problem we were talking about before. It is quite clear that the philosophy of the car are different, and one is better than the other. So you need a very drastic change, and now it's the moment to do that, because, as I said, I think that, the championship is fucking gone. You got to try to win races and try, to capitalize. Try to fucking understand something that, try to show some reaction. I don't care if Ferrari gets, 7th or 6th or 7th right now. I just want to see a different approach to the car. I just want to take risks and, eventually make a Ferrari 2.0, an F90.2.
Yeah, I think, I wouldn't disagree with you. It's simply because they've got to change something. Otherwise, it's more of the same. And we know that way leads to madness. So, I completely agree. I'm not sure what they can change. Redesigning the aerodynamics is going to take longer than the engine upgrade, apparently. So maybe by Canada we're going to get it. And Canada is, of course, one of those races where it's medium downforce.
Right, Canada is the other one I was thinking about. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. You made me think of it.
Yeah,
but So maybe by Canada they can do something where they get a new, at least medium downforce package in, and make a change there. But of course, Mercedes have got their engine upgrade to come at Canada, and they've also got aerodynamic changes themselves that they can upgrade. So it's chasing a cat with a very long tail.
Again, I don't think the engine is a problem right now. Again, it is my opinion. I don't think the engine package is okay. It's what's around the engine which is kind of fucked up at the moment.
Well, yeah, we can see by Spain, if you look at if you compared the top, or if you compared the mini sectors, I had a really good picture, which I can't find at the moment, of the mini sectors around Barcelona. And it showed clearly that every time there was a bit of straight, the Ferrari was beating the Mercedes.
Oh, the first sector were at times faster than Mercedes. The second sector was okay. In the third sector, they were losing 0.8 of a motherfucking second.
Yes,
the third sector. It's and if you see how the track is built, you understand what we're talking about. You know.
And this is irony for me, because of course Schumacher was the king at this, right? He was the king of putting loads of downforce on and making use of it to beat his opposition, especially in the third sectors, which is generally where they have all the twisty bits in circuits. So, I find this quite ironic that Ferrari have gone this other way, that they've actually said, right, that's it, we're going to go for the top speed and we're going to reduce downforce. Now, I don't think they meant to do that. I genuinely thought they would have a power advantage, and so they would be able to put on as much downforce as Mercedes and still have a faster top speed. Right now, as it turns out, Mercedes kind of fooled them a little bit, I think. And that second package upgrade that Mercedes brought to the first race, or the second test session, all right, is a lot better than we're giving it credit for and gave it credit for at the time. That's where they sandbagged. If we go back, I said at the beginning, I think Mercedes have done something really good here, whereas they brought to the first test their normal package, right? Even though they must have had the second package in the waiting, but they bought their normal package so they could test that against the computer, right? So they know what differences the upgrades are going to make because they can test them on computer, and that's a really good benchmark for them. That's taking advantage of what happened last year at Ferrari, where they bought mid-season an upgrade package, which just didn't work. And I think it didn't work because, not because their computer didn't say it was going to work. I believe, obviously, their computer said, Ferrari's computer must have said, yeah, this is a great upgrade package. It's going to work. And so they built it, they put it on the car, and it just didn't work. And that's why I think Mercedes have had this brilliant start this year, because their R&D package, their upgrade packages, they've really have got a handle on in the computer testing.
Yeah, I mean, as far as tool goes, I don't think that Ferrari and Mercedes, they're lacking tools. They both have a win gallery. They both have good simulators. I think the problem is what they start from, which is, fucked up. And I know what I'm going to say. It's a very long shot. But again, I'm talking from what I used to see. And I'm still pointing my finger to the attitude that two cars seems to have. And, yeah, and then let's say something, funny about Red Bull. But I don't think, and I know that what I'm going to say might be quite shocking, but I don't think that Mercedes, even last year and 2 years prior, they had the best car. They had the best package, and the package is the car which suits the driver. Now, to me, it seems to be that in Ferrari, they built a fucking amazing car. The problem is that the drivers that they have, they don't drive the cars the way they think they should be driven. And probably nobody can. I don't know. Maybe some other driver would be way faster than that. So one team is building the car according to the driver that they have, and the other team is building, okay, we give you a fucking missile, but I'm not a rocket driver. I'm driving a motherfucking car, so I don't know how to fucking drive this shit, right?
Yeah.
Red Bull is interesting because Red Bull has always had the approach of we're going to build the car and fuck the drivers. But it's a little bit different because their car has always been less edgy and less pointy, They've always privileged downforce. They always privileged, maneuverability, mostly because they didn't have to focus on the engine. That's one thing,
Oh, come on now. They've got tag, right, working. And
No. I'm talking about previous car. When they were racing with Renault, they had a package there to build around it, and they made the best out of that. It's way less engineering effort. You can only manage.
They rejig the Renault engine and always have done under tag.
No. Yeah, but I agree. But still, if you have some components, if you have the measures, I mean, if you can afford to hire, I don't know, 500 engineers.
Yeah,
it is one thing to hire 500 engineers on the chassis and say, okay, no, fuck it. I need 250 engineers on the engine, transmission, and 250 on the chassis. So it's a little bit different. But you see where I'm going. It's there is a lack of understanding of how things work right now, and I don't. To be totally fair, I don't actually blame Ferrari because, unfortunately, F1, and it's not the case, for the real races, which happens on two wheels. The engine, the car, is way more important than the driver. It's like 90%. So I understand you tried that one, but what you're missing is that if the 10% cannot drive the 90%, it's not 100%. It's going to be, 60%.
No, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, again, I think it's the point we made last race. and somebody's just made it in the side chat as it goes. Yale's Gurriel. Casey Stoner was the only man that could get the Ducati to work, and the years that Ducati before that had trying to get their riders to be able to win on that bike, no, just nobody managed it. And yet Casey jumped on it and was stunning from the beginning. So I would totally agree with you that maybe it's down to the drivers not being confident with the car. But this is familiar to me, right? Because of course, Raikkonen had the same problem. If you didn't give him a car with a good front end, right, he was nowhere.
Yeah.
Right, and it's the same thing here, right? Leclerc jumps in the Ferrari and he's fast in it, right? I mean, we 2 races ago, right, at Russia, or the one before Russia, I should say as well. He was absolutely stunning. Should have won the race. Was it Abu Dhabi?
Mm-hmm.
Should have won the race. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He was the best driver on that day, and it looked like he could tame the Ferrari. So what's happened here, right? Something's changed in that he's not the same driver in that car,
In Bahrain, the circuit suited the car, and none of the drivers the Ferrari has are donkeys. So if they have a circuit which can suit the car, they're world championship material, both of them, Vettel and Leclerc. So if the map suits the directions, it works. The problem is that you cannot make it work if it doesn't work. So it's a problem. And you mentioned Schumacher before. May I remind you that when Schumacher was in Ferrari, who was the team manager and the racing director?
No, it wasn't Briatore, because that's who he came from.
Yeah,
it was Toast, or was it, or Totti, or someone like that?
It was the weird French, which I still hate the guy.
The FIA guy.
Yeah, I still hate the guy because he was the racing director in Peugeot when Lancia was trying to win against Peugeot, and they did. It was Jean Todt. Jean Todt is not an engineer.
Yeah. No, he came from similar background to Briatore, right?
Right. It was the racing director for Peugeot Rally before with the Group B.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's something to see about it. Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. And by the way, Yales, I might have some stories about Casey, but
we'll get to one in a moment. Think about one, right? I just want to go through the rest of the field quickly then while you're thinking about one. I do want to mention Norris, because obviously British driver, and he has done so well. I think he's at fault for this error here. He stuck his front wheel down the outside of someone like Stroll. And it doesn't matter if you stick your front wheel down the backside of someone and then try and break out of it, it's going to be a crash, right? You have to be a good deal alongside. Good point. I mean, marks for trying. Yeah, that's fine. But of course, you can't try with these cars and fail, right? Because they're just too expensive. So, I'm sorry, Norris, you're at fault here. You were the car behind, and you can't stick your nose inside people unless you're going to really give it a good go. Maybe if he'd stuck his foot a bit harder down and stayed with it instead of trying to back out, you would have come out as a 50-50. But of course, you still both would have crashed. And maybe that's the lesson he should learn.
You should have a conversation with Maldonado about that.
Go for bigger crashes, I would say, Norris.
Yeah.
Take a leaf out of Jacques Villeneuve's book. But other than that, again, Norris was pretty damn good, I felt. Also, George Russell, a really good race. Again, he beat his teammate. So, he's doing really well. It's just a shame he's in such a rubbish car. I thought the Haas cars did pretty well.
Yes.
It's really entertaining to see them going at each other. I'm really disappointed by the team principal's remarks, right? Which are on the team radio were all for Grosjean and none for Marcus Ericsson, right? So I feel really disappointed because I'm not a Grosjean fan. He makes too many mistakes.
Yeah, yeah, it does. I mean, it made a mess out of it. If it wasn't for Norris with that big shit he made, the Maldonado prize would have gone to Grosjean. No questions about it. I mean, he tried twice. He made a mess out of it. It was fucking insane. But it was good to see the other two Italian teams, going well. The Haas and the Toro Rosso. So yeah.
Good, good. Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
Because
So
I'm not considering Alpha an Italian team.
not yet, anyway. Not until
No,
they.
not well. First of all, not yet. You have a point, but they're in Switzerland. While Haas, the chassis is from Dallara, and Toro Rosso is basically Minardi and the still in Faenza. So yeah,
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, again, yeah. Again, I mean, it's disappointing. It's kind of really weird to see Alpha, fall back like this. It's quite confusing, really, because they do have such a great driver in terms of
yeah.
Kimi, but obviously showing once again that he doesn't get involved in car development as much as maybe some of the other drivers do and should. So
I'm quite worried about Alpha right now because of the trend that he had in the last two races. What I'm afraid of, and I don't know if that's the case, is that but that's something that we might have. I mean, we said at the beginning. The problem is the money that you can put in development. So I am afraid that I mean, it's not a big team, and of course they're short on money.
always.
So so I think that development plan is stretched out during the season. So now it's the moment where they have, the downfall. They probably have to wait a little bit more, to get, some new parts, and then they'll probably be a little bit farther ahead. But right now, I think it's one of the problematic parts of the season. I think they will go up and down a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. Also, it's worth mentioning that Haas and Alpha didn't have the Ferrari updates. So you never know. In the next few races, perhaps Ferrari will build them an engine or two for them to use. In which case, they could have some kind of comeback as well.
Can I reply to a comment real quick? Haas
Please
is
do.
not an American car. Haas chassis is made literally 2 hours from where I live in Dallara. The engine is Ferrari. I mean, the money comes from the US. I'll give you that. But it's not an American car in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. Also, I'd like to just point out that Renault is an English car, and also Mercedes, both English.
I mean, the engine is not; it doesn't come from over there, but yeah.
But nonetheless, the teams are based here, so there you go.
Yeah, I mean, you remember what Ferrari used to say about the British, teams, right? That they are, that they're just garage assemblers. They take stuff. Yeah. So yeah, we make all the stuff, and they just buy shit off the shelf and they just assemble that.
Yeah, assemble it in a very clever way, though, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So yeah, okay, so that's great. Is there anybody else we need to mention? Red Bull haven't really said too much about him, but I think again it's pretty standard. Gasly not up to speed. Verstappen drove a great race. He was lucky, but he did drive a good race.
Well, we mentioned Ricciardo. He tried, but that car is a mess. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah,
it is insane.
Obviously, the chassis isn't great.
Yeah, I was quite impressed by McLaren actually about chassis wise and general overall the car. I was very impressed. Oh yeah, I mean we got to say no Honda engines exploded this time.
Yeah, this time. Well, that's going to be a habit. I've got to say,
there is a fucking Honda engine on the third place at the podium. So yeah.
Yeah, and it is amazing how Red Bull keep doing this with what are allegedly subpar engines, they turn them into winning cars. So
Yeah,
obviously, it's Adrian Newey and his downforce, yeah, expertise.
yeah, but
Also, I mean, I believe at this time it's suspension, though, aren't they? They're kind of saying they've got a new suspension which preserves tire life. So that's great.
yeah, but I mean, it makes you really wonder. What they used to say last year. But McLaren, that everybody was trying to blame each other, and I mean, I've always been on the side of McLaren. In a way, I'm seriously reconsidering the old scenario, the old thing.
I think I would, right? Because well, I mean, I've been saying the same thing. I mean, they keep saying they have the best chassis, but they've never proved it, or haven't proved it for such a long time, and
Yeah,
didn't even going back. I mean, Michael Andretti driving in the 90s for McLaren, right? He used to finish 15, 16. Yet 2 years earlier, Senna was finishing in the the top five.
right.
So you know what I mean. I don't know. I'm a little bit dubious, shall we say,
Yeah.
about about the way they go about reporting things. But then, of course, they're private companies, they're small companies. They need the money, and they cannot afford to have any negative media on them.
I might be a dick and say, they don't have anybody to steal from, so the car is a dog. But yeah, I don't want to dig old graves now, right?
Yeah,
So
fair enough. Yeah. I think I did say Michael. Did I say Mario? If I said
yeah,
Mario, I
yeah,
meant
yeah,
Michael.
yeah.
But there you go. I think I might have said Michael. But anyway, okay, so that's great. We've got 2 weeks now before the Monaco Grand Prix, so that's wonderful. Think about your Casey Stoner story, because I'm going to ask you in a second. 2 weeks for Monaco. Again, we can't really look at anything but a better Mercedes 1-2, especially around a track like this. So it's either hope for them to collide, or we're going to be talking about exactly the same thing in 2 weeks' time. But there we are. The only difference maybe is Red Bull will have a bit more of a chance, and that could be good.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2 weeks time. Also in 2 weeks time, I believe, is the Indy 500, which I'll certainly be tuning into, because of course Alonso and McLaren are driving in that one, even though this time they're using a Chevrolet engine. So who
Oh,
knows what will happen. Any last
nice.
words, and then onto your story?
No, I will leave the story for next time. So
Oh,
people, yeah, yeah, it's yeah,
cliffhanger.
yeah,
Okay.
cliffhanger. Oh, fuck it. Yeah.
Well, it should be said then that that Fabio actually used to work for a team which might have employed Casey Stoner at one point. So
Yes.
he's got a bit of inside knowledge. So everybody, please tune in next week, next 2 weeks rather, in 2 weeks' time,
Yeah.
to hear those story. And thank you, and ciao, everybody. Ciao, Fabio.